Net, partnership, capacity building, networking, right to water and sanitation. Our vision, our mission, strategic objectives, our core values, strategy house, strategy summary.
Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Kewasnet, improving governance in the water and sanitation sector. Kewasnet, partnership, capacity building, networking, right to water and sanitation. Our vision, our mission, strategic objectives, our core values, strategy house, strategy summary.
Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Kewasnet, improving governance in the water and sanitation sector.
Mic testing. Mic testing. Oh, this is for the camera. Okay, okay. For this one, yes.
Kewasnet Partnership, Capacity Building, Networking, Right to Water and Sanitation. Our vision, our mission, strategic objectives, our core values, strategy house, strategy summary.
Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Kewasnet, improving governance in the water and sanitation sector. Kewasnet Partnership, Capacity Building, Networking, Right to Water and Sanitation. Our vision, our mission, strategic objectives, our core values, strategy house, strategy summary.
Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Kewasnet, improving governance in the water and sanitation sector.
We are sorry we are starting around 26 minutes late, but it's good to start so because our other colleagues online are already there. You can see there is a good number online, and so we will start. And I would just like us just to start with the word of prayer, even as we continue. Can we have a volunteer praying for us? Yes. Am I volunteering you with my eyes? Okay. Yeah.
Father, Lord in heaven, we thank you for the gift of life and for the opportunity of bringing us this morning to come and share this session. We call upon your blessings and your guidance through the program as we start until the end. For this we pray, we trust and believe in Jesus' name. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wycliffe. We are so happy that you're here. We welcome you to this particular wonderful day. It's a great day for this country, for the CSOs also in this country, and all that are the player sectors. Yeah, for a long time, we have said that we don't have enough data, we don't have enough information coming from the CSOs. But today, we want to know exactly what is happening with the CSOs, which is something that is very, very important. Because of what is going on online, we can't introduce all that are online, but at least we'll be able to know if you are there, and we'll continue even acknowledging those that are there. But right now, inside live, I can see we are a few of us, and we will continue even that way. So for all those inside, we will introduce ourselves because we are not many. We can just introduce ourselves, who we are, and our organizations, where we are coming from. And then from there, we will continue. Kindly, I will be helped with the mic so that we introduce ourselves. And then from there, we can continue to the next step. Kindly, because we are few.
Hello, my name is Brenda Kamangara. I work with Energy, Russia. We are in the WSS sector and very happy to
Hey, good morning. And my name is Simon Maneki, and I work with Wash Alliance Kenya.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gako Duan. I work for Money Trust.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Asha Shaban. I work with Center for Social Planning and Administrative Development at CESFA.
Good morning. My name is Lucy Kebenji. I'm the rapporteur.
Good morning. My name is Marcia Chando, the Finance and Admin Officer at Kewasnet. You're all welcome.
Good morning. My name is Susan Nasila, Programs at Kewasnet. Karibuni sana.
Good morning. My name is Joan Fones, the National Research Coordinator at Kewasnet. You're most welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Madesi Shimbaji. I'm the Chief Executive at Kewasnet.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ismail Shahir. I'm the CEO of Water Sector Trust Fund. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Anderson, First Secretary at the Embassy of Sweden.
Thank you. My name is Wycliffe Nyekundi. I work in Kewasnet. Karibu sana. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Those are the members here, and I'm Patrick Elube, Executive Director, Kenya Water for Health Organization, and that is how I'll be moderating today with my other colleagues. And so we hope to have a beautiful, fruitful day. We welcome members who are online, and just some few announcements for those ones that are online. You might not be able to talk to us directly, but once you want to talk, let us know through the chat. You can go to the chat and just type in, and then we'll be able to send you a link. And then through that link, you'll be able to talk to us. So let us know that. Immediately you would want maybe to discuss or to ask a question, or maybe to something to be clarified to you, let us know. And then what we'll do, you will make us know through the chat. Then us will provide you a link, which will help you even to go through and you'll be able to talk to us. Secondly, because of the session today, which is quite packed, we will not have a break in between, but we will invite you. There is snacks outside, there's tea outside. Anytime you feel like you need a snack, you need some tea, then kindly feel free, go get the snack, go get the tea, and then come back in here. Just because of the way the whole program is, we might not have that. And so coming back to the program, just to get us know, maybe for those online who don't have, and for us who are in here, soon we are going to have opening remarks from the CEO at Kewasnet, who after that is going to invite the Senior Program Manager, Environment, Climate Change from the Sweden Embassy, who will also give the opening remarks. And then after that, we'll have some speeches in this place. We'll have speeches from the CEO WASRED, and then the CEO Water Sector Trust Fund, who is here with us. And then after that, Adam from the ministry, we believe he'll be here by then from the Ministry of Health. After that, we'll have John taking us through the background, the methodology of the findings. And then after that, we will have plenary, which I believe it's going to be quite vibrant, especially after Madam Cornes has taken us through what is here, the findings and the report itself. And then we'll have remarks again from the Ministry of Water, the Acting Director, Sanitation Management, and the Head of Development Corporation from the Ministry of Water, Sanitation, and Irrigation. He'll be here, and then he's going to give remarks. And then finally, we will have the launch, the ceremony itself, where we'll be launching our annual report, which is a voice. I'm told this is voice number 2, because we were launching before that the CSO's annual report, but then I changed to the name last year, and today we have the voice number 2, which is quite something. Let's just applause the sector for that. Just let's clap for them because of that achievement. I think that is a great achievement. That's just practice of what we are going to be doing, because today it's launching, so we will really be vibrant in this place. Nikusherehekea, asanteni sana. So that is what we will be doing even as we continue on. And then lastly, we'll have the remarks from our sister Asha, the Executive Director, CESPAN. Then we will be able to network and debate. We believe by then it will be midday. So that is the program that we are having, and without much ado, you'll allow me now to welcome the CEO for Kewasnet now to take over from there, and then once he is through, he's going to welcome the embassy representative.
Welcome. Let's give a round of applause even as Shivaji comes over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alube. The First Secretary, Embassy of Sweden, Lisa, want to thank you very much for gracing this occasion. My brother and friend, Mr. Shaye from the Trust Fund, also thanking you for your presence. And indeed, we're also expecting a few other officials from government to be here, including the chief guest who has just indicated that he is on the way. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you most profoundly for making the time to join us, either here or through the virtual space. I've seen there quite a number of attendees, and we recognize and acknowledge your presence and support. Ladies and gentlemen, The Voice is in its second edition, but it is the seventh in a series of CSO annual performance reports that we have consistently provided since the year 2015. The production of this annual report, is part of our commitment as civil society organizations to uphold elements of accountability on our part, but also to contribute to the overall good governance within the sector in Kenya. And we believe that in making a report of our performance and actually looking inwards regarding what is it that we have done best, what is it that we could do better, that we ultimately contribute to the overall performance of the country in the pursuits of the Sustainable Development Goals. As you will hear, this year we are also reporting the highest number of contributions from civil society organizations. But we are still cognizant of the fact that we are still missing out on a few. And it's our continued pursuit to make sure that we have everybody on board, voluntarily reporting. As KEWASNET, we understand that no single contributor to this report has any obligation to report. So it is voluntary, and the fact that we are able to increasingly raise the number of contributors, it shows that a bigger number of organizations understand the value of having such a report, of being accountable to themselves, but also contributing to understanding the scope of investments within the sector. In this report, we are reporting a total contribution of about 11 billion Kenya shillings from civil society organizations and social enterprises. Be as it is, this is significant. And by producing this report, we are asking that this very important constituency that has this significant contribution also be listened to, be heard, but also be integrated within the entire sphere of planning and execution of the sectoral plans. For us, as civil society and social enterprises, we think it will be important to ensure that such an investment is integrated just beyond numbers, to look at how is it that we can make these individual contributions from each of the contributors make a difference in the direction that the sector needs to take. And therefore, we anticipate that through having this report, civil society organizations and social enterprises can increasingly be included on the planning table so that our investments are much better targeted and they are much more impactful in contributing to the sectoral performance. In this second edition of The Voice, we continue to borrow from inputs that have been received in every subsequent launch, including suggestions for better reporting of the performance, better reflection of the change, but also trying to look at what are these social and development indicators that need to be part of the report. And to this effect, the Voice this year reflects a little bit more on the subject of inclusion, but also starting also to look at issues to do with climate change resilience. So as we launch this second edition of The Voice, we will continue to welcome ideas, inputs, suggestions on how we can continually make this report not an end in itself, but an instrument that enables us as a sector to improve performance. As we look at the Sustainable Development Goals and the aspirations that we have as a country, including the aspirations of the Vision 2030, we want to raise the challenge that we are not just looking at what is it that we have done, how much we have covered, but rather look at what is it that we have not done, what is that is remaining, what is the scale of the challenge that still remains for us as a country. And to this effect, we need to strongly reflect on who are those who have been left behind and why have they been left behind. And as civil society and social enterprises, this would remain intrinsically important for us. We need to look at what is the magnitude of that challenge of what has not been done, and what can we do together as a sector to try and overcome the challenge. But we also need to acknowledge that we work within a very dynamic sector, and things keep on changing every other day, including the rural-urban migration, the growth of the counties in our context, but also the sectoral developments, including strategic reviews and so on. So how do we become resilient enough to adapt to these changes and make a continuous difference? As KEWASNet, and with respect to this report, we are looking at improving or reworking the integrity, quality, and compliance toolbox, which is central in our review of the performance in this report. And we are hoping that with that review, we can make the report much more reflective of our changing situation. In conclusion, I would like to recognize that we just got information end of last week that we now have a new water policy, which has been finally adopted by Parliament after quite a long wait. This by itself should give us a new impetus to look at the challenges that we need to overcome, including very clear proposals on the now anticipated review of the Water Act 2016, which is now in the works. And this should be a starting point of that discussion, and we want to welcome all of you to be part of that. I thank you, and I look forward to a very interesting session coming up as we discuss this edition of The Voice, and look forward to every single input that will be available. I thank you. Now, allow me now to introduce Lisa. Lisa has just rejoined the embassy, let me say. She has a very big Kenyan heart. So when she's here, I know she has a lot of and the best interest for the success of this sector and Kenya as a whole. Karibu, Lisa.
Asante sana, Dermadesi. Thank you so much. Honorable Chief Guest Engineer Chengo, dear CEO of Kevansnet, Water Sector Trust Fund, WASREB, members of Kevansnet, representatives from the government of Kenya, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. Thank you so much for inviting the Embassy of Sweden to this event, to the launch. And it's a pleasure to be here at the launch of the CSO Annual Water and Sanitation Sector Performance Report, The Voice, developed and produced by the Kenyan Water and Sanitation Civil Society Network, KEVASNET. Safe drinking water and sanitation are recognized as basic human rights. And the 2010 Constitution of Kenya recognizes that every citizen has the right to clean and safely manage water in adequate quantities and to reasonable standards of sanitation. The rights-based perspective to equitable access to wash is at the heart of the principle of leaving no one behind, a commitment which is articulated strongly in the Sustainable Development Goal 6 on water and sanitation for all. The fact is that water touches every aspect of development, and it links with nearly every SDG. It drives economic growth, supports healthy ecosystems, food and energy production, and is essential and fundamental for life itself. Today, access to water is under extreme threat. Threat from a growing population, increasing demands from agriculture and industry, pollution of surface water bodies, and the worsening impacts of climate change. and the consequences will be felt mostly by the poorest and the most vulnerable. In addition, I think the COVID-19 pandemic has also emphasized the importance of access to water and sanitation, safe water and sanitation, as a core for development. As societies balance the demands of water resources, the needs of those often not at the decision-making table needs to be heard. Women and children, marginalized, indigenous and displaced communities. Kenya has made encouraging progress on access to water and sanitation, and especially in terms of establishing supportive legal and policy frameworks. We just heard that the new water policy was finally adopted by the parliament last week. However, making water and basic sanitation available to all by the year 2030 requires a substantial increase in budgetary resources. Kenya requires more investments in wash and water resource management in order to address inequities in the sector, especially on reaching the poor and most vulnerable that continue to remain underserved. This can be achieved by ensuring equitable distribution of financing to the poorest and most deserving communities, and providing finance for strengthening the enabling environment. In addition, WASH budget tracking, advocacy, and accountability should remain key priorities. I would like to convey a sincere appreciation to the Kenya Water and Sanitation Civil Society Network for developing this report annually, which outlines the contribution and impacts of CSOs to the wash and water resource management sectors. Like previous annual reports, this version also underscores the critical role that CSOs and social enterprises play in the sectors. Civil society organizations have proven to be effective actors in holding policymakers and government accountable for progress through advocacy and lobbying for increased budget allocations and ensuring the same is invested in an equitable manner that leaves no one behind. The role of civil society organizations in amplifying the voice of marginalized groups in society is particularly important in the sector, given that evidence shows that these groups suffer disproportionately from water and sanitation related poverty. Civil society organizations promote good governance by advocating for transparency and strengthening platforms of stakeholder participation and coordination. Through coalitions and networks such as Kevasnet, we think that CSOs should continue drawing together their individual and collective strengths to influence decision makers by making evidence-based cases for sustainable wash and water resource management services for all. This report that is being launched today has identified opportunities for the role of the civil society organizations in policy and budget advocacy, strengthening sector governance, and supporting communities to hold duty bearers to account. A key priority area is supporting county governments to develop or revamp WASH action plans and strategies, and rally wider stakeholders around those plans for coordinated investments. And in the spirit of public participation in decision making and resource allocations, CSOs could also continue to lay emphasis on training of community WASH action groups to do effective lobbying and advocacy for resources. Sweden has, for a long time, supported Kenya to achieve access to clean water and sanitation for all. The partnership with Kevasnet, which is ongoing since 2014, is one example. Another example is the long-standing partnership with Government of Kenya through the Water Sector Trust Fund. And Sweden will, through our new strategy for development cooperation with Kenya, continue to support the task of providing safe drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene for all, focusing on the poorest. The critical role that civil society and social enterprises play in advancing WASH and water resource management in Kenya is clear. KEVASnet holds a unique platform for networking, collaboration, and cooperation among civil society, private sector, the government, and therefore we encourage KEVASnet to maximize on this and on the goodwill it enjoys from its members and the Kenyan government to continue to advocate for and spearhead programs that will enhance and propel the sector into achieving the Sustainable Goal 6. We also encourage the government to increase the levels of public funding at both national and county levels to ensure the progressive realization for the rights to water and sanitation for all. Asante sana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, representative from the Embassy of Sweden, Lisa. Thank you, CEO for KEWASNET. Thank you for those opening remarks, and indeed they are quite profound. We will be digesting them, and I'm sure members, I can see you online already. You started actually congratulating even the messages that are already here. And so I know a lot is happening. So thank you very much. And we will continue with our program. As I said, for those members who are online, for us to know that you really want to contribute, kindly just make sure that you write on the chat so that we will send you the link so that you can be able to contribute. And then the other comments, kindly just send them directly. If you have any question again, you could write at the chat and then we'll be able to read your question. Yeah, thank you, CEO for NIA. I can see the executive director from NIA is here. And so people are continuing to come. And thank you for all of that. And so prepare your questions. We'll have time for questions. I'm sure already what has been said, you have a lot of questions to this. We are told this is the second edition of The Voice, but it's not that this is when we are starting. We started 7 years ago. And 7 years ago, if you see the type of material, the type of documents that we have produced, there is a lot of growth. And so whatever we are seeing today on our tables, this is a lot of growth that has taken place. And as Lisa said, each and every day, yeah, we have seen the program changing and the program growing. So most welcome. And so we will continue with our program. We'll now take this time to invite the CEO of Water Services and Trust Fund to come over and make his remarks. Tupigie makofi hata anapokuja. Welcome. We are in this time of sanitizing, so tumeambia we have to do it. Yes. Karibu.
Thank you, Patrick Rube, JNC. Madam Lisa Anderson, Party Secretary, Embassy of Sweden, who is also the Senior Program Manager for Climate Change Embassy. My friend, colleague, CEO KEWASNET, Malezi Sivaji. Colleague CEOs who are here. Folks, Kenyans who are watching us virtually, participants here in this room, good morning. I'll be very brief and to the point because I am a strong believer of what Kewasne and civil society is doing in Kenya. We have always worked together very closely with Kewasne and the partners who work under that umbrella. I think I'm one of the few CEOs who have actually embraced Kewasnet and its partners to say that come and work with us. I think government always pushes civil society, but I think I am the one actually who took the opportunity to hug you and said, come and help us. Banashbachi, when you are discussing this, it's always also good to give the government credit because Ismail is not working alone, he's also working with the government. But that said, we will never achieve the task ahead of us as a government if we are not going to embrace the partners from civil society and the social enterprise who are working in this sector. It's so huge, and the gap is so huge that you cannot leave it to the counties, neither can you leave it to the national government, and that is now where civil society comes in handy to say that we need to work together. Within the government, we say the whole of government approach, but outside government is where I'm talking about the holistic approach to us achieving access to water and sanitation for our country. And to say that, I also want to challenge, allow me, I've just seen my colleague from the ministry, Engineer Chengo, Karibu Sana, who's also our chief guest today. So Karibu Engineer Chengo. I just wanted to challenge civil society that part of this report that today you are launching, I will seek your indulgence with the government to come up with, if we can map out access to water. I mean, the world is working with evidence-based solutions nowadays. You just don't say access to sanitation is 30% without any support of data that you're referring to. I think as a country, Mr. Rajan, I want to challenge you because I know as a fund, ministry through Engineer Chengo, we are looking at how can we, when somebody connects water in Mandera, how can we see in the dashboard at the ministry that somebody X has connected at the dashboard here at the ministry? That way, we know how many people are connected to, in the water services, how many people are also connected in sanitation. That way, when we discuss your report in the near future, I want to see what has government done. It will be very nice, much as I've seen this is a very good report, but I would have loved to see national government has done this, the county government has done this. This is the gap, and this is where civil society has come into. We need to, as a country, we need to have systems in place. And for me, that will make a huge impact for the country, but also it will also help us in making decisions in the near future. That said, the role of Kewasnet, I was just thinking loud. You took me back to my law school days. I remember when I went to law school, especially I was doing environmental law, specifically water law. Part of the class for you to have standing, it's an American law. So it is Euclid Park vis-a-vis versus Sierra Club. In that case, if you Google it, it is not the judgment that the judge made that actually shaped the environmental world, but it's actually the dissent of the judge who made and said, who will speak for the birds, who will speak for the other creatures, who will speak for the forest. So I just imagine, and I said, I was just asking myself, here I am working with the government in Genchema myself, but I said, yes, we are doing at our best what we could. But who will speak and tell us that, hey, you're not doing the right thing, or go to this direction, you can have a bigger impact on this side. I was just imagining myself going back to law school class and saying, I know the role Kewasnet and the partners seated here are playing is very important. Nobody's perfect. We need to be told also that let us partner on this, rekebisha hapa, tuendelee hivi. You know, that's why you have advisors as well. So even the approach Kewasnet has taken 2 weeks ago, I understand they were in Senate, had some case that they were dealing with. The government came in, answered the way we could, and that's how we need to move forward as partners. It's not that Kewasnet does not care about Kenyans, neither is it that government does not care about Kenyans. No, I think if we put together our resources, put our brains together, we'll get somewhere. I was quite happy when a CEO, when you mentioned 11 billion. That's huge. I hope if it was planned well, because I remember with what trust fund we are doing through our government, from the partners also, that you're also accessing the money from, we were able to have 10% increase in the WASREP impact report. That is huge. So I would like to see how that can be translated by WASREP to also see that how much civil society is contributing to the water and sanitation sector in Kenya. If it is planned well with the county and with the national government, I believe that will go a long way. I just also wanted to make an announcement. We are working on several issues. We are getting a lot of funding as a fund through our partners. But to me, when we talk about money, the first thing that comes to my head is Samwari. Yes, we have systems in place, but I want to invite you. We are working on several documents, criteria for funding in the water sector. That's something Trust Fund is working on. We have engaged a consultant who's working on it. I want civil society to have your fingerprints in that document. It's one of the partners that we're going to reach out to. We are coming up with innovative way of financing the water sector, where we are coming up with, and I don't want to call it a revolving fund. No, it's not. It's a credit facility of some sort, and it has been embraced by 6 major banks in Kenya who want to fund the water sector. We want to write the framework right now. We don't want to do it by ourselves and say, you know, Ismail, you messed up 5 years from now. I won't be there. Please join us to make these decisions. We are working with Washfield very closely, and I will definitely approach Kewasnet and the umbrella team to come and have your input in those kind of documents that we're developing. With that, if we work together, and I want to end here, if we work together and we pool these resources that I will consider them as, you know, they don't exist nowadays. The government is pushing towards PPP as another way of also fundraising for the water sector. In fact, we have been tasked to come up with projects that will qualify for that with our treasury. So the small amount of money that we are receiving from our partners and also from the government of Kenya, we need to use it prudently. At the same time, put our heads together to come up with innovative ways of doing business from the way we used to do. I think COVID has tested our systems. And for the first time, I realized that WSPs, we have seen the role that they are playing in the water sector in our country. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you for us to come together, think together, and lead our country to the right place where we believe access to water and sanitation is not only a human rights issue, but it also has an impact on our social economic aspect, standards of our country. So with those many remarks, I want to say thank you so much. God bless all of you, and God bless Kenya.
Makofi mazuri tafadhali. Let's give a good round of applause. Yeah, I think that is very great. Always, whenever government starts, especially in this sector, they have an open arm to the CSOs. Come, let us discuss. Come, let us work together. I have seen this all through, and I am sure even part of the progress that we are reporting is through their support. It's through what they have done
especially water sector trust fund. I think they've done just quite a lot. So we would like just to recognize more people who are online. We've seen the representative from Simavi, Patrick Mwanzia is online, who is representing Simavi. We also have Tawasnet, who are the equivalent of Kewasnet from Tanzania. They are also part online. We have Esango Youth from Kisii. We are seeing the youth coming in very, very strongly. And I think this is something that we have embraced even as CSOs being led by Kewasnet to see how are we bringing youth into this. And in some areas I've already seen there are what we are calling youth parliaments coming through. And so we have a Sango youth from Kisii also, which is online. We have Anna Tufson, who is also online. We welcome you so much. Last time we were together, physically together, but today you are online. Thank you for joining in. And so we will continue. I am also informed that Richard Choriot, who is supposed to speak on behalf of WASRED, is also online. So we will welcome him through so that he can give his opening remarks or speech. Richard Cheriot, please. Are we able to get him? Okay. Yes. So. Just a moment, Richard, if you can hear us, please. We are trying to connect you. We are seeing you, but your voice is not through. Just a minute, please. Trying to connect you. We are seeing you, but your voice is not through. Just a minute. Try it out now. Try it out now.
Are you muted from your end? Richard, are you muted?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Yes, you can go ahead now.
I want to really pass apologies. Yeah, thank you very much. And apologies that for the technical hitch. I think I'll go back to what I said earlier. And really say I want to join the previous speakers to applaud Kewasnet for the launch of this second edition of The Voice. Like I said, as a sector regulator for water services, it's a delight for us to really be part of this process, this launch this morning. It's really our interest that, the performance that we put out there annually and which we've made reference to in impact quite resonates with what the citizens are saying out there. And really looking at what the CEO Kewasnet said in terms of the contribution of the civil society in terms of the resources. We talk about 11 billion shillings. And if you look at what the sector basically has is able to generate internally, it's basically like twice that. Because I think the last assessment that we did as WASREB, we have an sector turnover of slightly more than 22 billion. So indeed, you can almost see that really the contribution of the civil society network is quite huge. WASREB was really invited to talk about the status of the national status of water services, and really for us, if you look at the report that we released last, which is the 13th edition of Impact, the proportion of the population out there that is currently getting services from regulated water service providers is slightly more than 50% of the national population. Yeah, and that tells us that another 50% of the population really still get services from what we would consider as really informal water service providers. And therefore, there is need for us, and like mentioned by the previous speakers, really to think about what we can do as to really get reach to these people and ensure that all that provision in the Constitution and the Article 43 is really realized, and there is clear evidence that there is all the actors are progressively moving towards this. So it really, very quickly, if you look at where we stand in terms of access to water services, the last assessment for us, and looking at that proportion of the population, which I said is about 50 population, we did notice that there was a decline in access levels from what we had previously of 59% by 2 percentage points to 57%. In absolute terms, this decline really is because of the population growth in the service areas of the water service providers growing at a faster rate compared to growth in access. So as much as we did realize some growth in access, but then that growth in access was really eaten up by the much higher increase in population growth within the service areas of these water service providers. I think if you look at the KPIs that we use for tracking sector performance, and really the ones that interface directly with the consumers, and looking at the outcome indicators in this case, then we notice that apart from reliability of supply, which marginally improved, access to water services in terms of the water and sanitation or sewerage services declined. And similarly also, the quality of water services recorded a margin of decline. And so I think it is in the interest of all of us to really put together our thoughts and see whether what we can be able to do to really reverse that decline. But again, looking forward and look at the targets that we have set for ourselves for 2030, both nationally and looking at the requirements of the SDGs, then the challenge is even bigger because if you subject those success levels we have mentioned to the yardsticks of the SDGs, then you notice that again there is a decline. If you really look at the access of 57% in terms of safely managed water services, then we are seeing a decline of that to about 32%, and the other 25% basically is considered as a basic service. Of course, the story for sanitation is also still a challenge. The main challenge being that we don't have very good data from the water service providers. We are working on really improving this, and we are hoping that going forward, we should be able to improve on the quality of data that we have on sanitation. And I think I want to laud the actions taken, both from the policy and at the operational level, to really ensure that we align ourselves to the requirements of the SDGs, and also look at the other aspects of sanitation and not just seaward sanitation services. I want to mention here also that WASREB, beginning last year, did commence a process of looking at the rural water challenge, and working with the waterworks development agencies. We did collect data for about 7,000 of the small systems, serving a population of about 7 million people. I know it's been mentioned here that we really need to clearly map out the contributions of these informal providers, and of course subsequently ensure that we streamline the operations. We have some ongoing activity, really map out the small-scale providers, whether they are within areas of already existing water service providers or within the rural areas with the support of the World Bank. By such a time next year, we will be having data, and we will be having an indication of the type of water services that are out there and provided by these systems in all the 47 counties. But I think narrowing down to really looking at the challenge, I think it's been mentioned. If you look at the growth of access and what is happening in terms of population growth, there's definitely a mismatch in terms of the population growth is developing at a much faster rate than that which we are seeing in terms of development of access. But as WASREB, we have proposals in terms of what requires to be done. I know we have mentioned about increasing and putting in more resources, which is very key. So one of the issues is really to optimize the resources that are coming in for the sector. We need to basically also improve on investment planning, and it's good to note that there's already an initiative to develop a national investment plan. There's also streamlining of rural water services, which I have already mentioned. And then the key thing of counties delegating water service provision to the entities, or utilities that will then be held accountable for provision of water services. But we have, in a nutshell, looking at what would be required as priority issues for the sector. Then the key issue really is we need to improve on access to water services, and this we are looking at least annually, if we are to get to the targets we have set for ourselves by 2030. Sanitation has to increase by another 2 percentage points where we are currently. The issue of governance remains a challenge, and which requires actions from all the actors. We have mentioned about the issue of ensuring that we have inclusivity in service provision, and the whole aspect of not leaving anyone behind. We have the whole challenge of water losses, and like it was indicated earlier, the sector is losing so much in terms of the non-revenue water, and this is the resources that easily be harnessed to improve the water services. We need to optimize investments, definitely. We have talked about the issue of enhancing resilience, and as well as we're trying to come out with, what is it really that utilities need to embrace to ensure that they are climate resilient, and all the activities that they are doing have a climate resilience aspect in it. Improving sustainability definitely is one of the key things that the sector will look at, and then of course ensuring that we're effective use. In conclusion, really, I think WASREP is looking forward to that point where we're saying, the sector is really operating with uniform standards, and that all the people have access to services that will be considered as regulated, and we have actors in place that are accountable to their consumers. I know the CEO Kewasnet mentioned about indicators on inclusion, indicators on resilience, and these are the things that increasingly WASREP is looking at and ensure that we are able to align our sector performance tracking to some of these issues. I think we have a lot of gains from the reform process, which really pushing to ensure that the counties embrace this and ensure that the whole issue of commercializing water services, which has been there for the last almost 20 years, continues to be sustained, and this is extended even to areas that are currently not served by water service providers. We will continue to report in terms of the what the actors are doing. WASREP is working to ensure that whatever contributions all the actors have is reflected in the sector performance that is put out every. So I want to join the other stakeholders and really congratulate Kewasnet for this milestone, and really look forward to valuable discussions after this. And my apologies. I know I could see some people in the chat box saying they can't hear me very well. Really, my apologies that I wasn't able to join this launch physically. I want to end here and really thank everyone. So thank everyone for being here, and look forward to further discussions on this. I thank you, and over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Richard. At least you've been quite audible, and that has been good. Even those ones who are complaining at the end, they have also agreed that they have heard you. And we hope you'll stay with us so that at least if there is any question, you'll be able to answer. Even the rest of us that have just gone, I'm sure they will come online so that they're able to answer any questions that will be there. And so, without much ado again, and looking at time again, I would like just to welcome the Minister of Health representative who is going to give their remarks. So, welcome one another.
All protocols observed. Good morning, everyone. My name is Doyle Leonard. I work for the Ministry of Health in the Department of Public Health in the WASH division. When we got the invitation for this meeting, we were very much happy because Kewasnet has been part and parcel of WASH activities in the entire country. So it's something we took with a great honor for recognizing us. As a division, our role majorly is to deal with the rural sanitation. And most of our activities are basically in the rural areas, where we have one approach called CLTS, which we have rolled out in the 47 counties, exclude 46, excluding Nairobi, because it's more urban and there are a lot of urban challenges as regards to the CLTS approach. I can see from the invitation you want us to say something regarding the sanitation and hygiene status in the country. As you all know, in the rural population Kenya, we have about 4.7 million Kenyans who are defecating in the open, which is about 10% of our population, estimated population. And the 4.7% came from the 2019 population census. And we have classified these counties. We have those that are have the highest OD, which are about 15 counties. And then we have those with moderate, and those that I think OD is about 2%. So with partners, I hope Kewasnes is a part of it through their role, especially on policy influencing and capacity building. We are focused on 15. Our focus now is 15, which is contributing up to around 10% of the OD, open defecation. So the 15 OD, we have also launched what we call Kenya Sanitation Alliance. We are about to launch. We did a pre-launch to ensure that through pressure from partners, the government can really allocate the resources, both the national and the county government, allocate the resources to end that open defecation. And we know what are the dangers of open defecation. As a country, we cannot develop economically if most of our population, most of our households are taking care of the sick. The total number of villages we have in Kenya, there are about 79,729. That's the total number of villages. The approach for CLTS uses villages. And with partners, with support from partners, the government, including the county government, we have been able to trigger that 7,800 villages. Then those that have been claimed, those that claim that now almost every village, every household within a village has managed to come up with a latrine and hand washing station, there are about 26,000. Then we have those that are verified by another party. Normally, they start the structure of governance, maybe at the sub-county level. They have managed to verify 23,598. And those that we are sure now they are certified, meaning that nobody within that village is going for open defecation. Nobody is defecating the open, meaning that every household within those villages has a toilet and they are using it. We have 21,565. Again, on issues of hygiene, we have realized that still rural areas, there's a challenge, especially on hand washing. And you know, through research, WHO research, and even UNICEF, about 40% you are able to control diseases, especially diarrheal diseases, up to around 40% through hand washing. So the rural is not doing much. They are not doing well, especially on hand washing. It's around 13% of our household in the rural are the only one that are practicing practicing hand washing. Urban is doing very well, slightly very well. 32% of the urban population are practicing hand washing. So still, we have a lot to do. We have come up with several approaches, CLTS being one of them, and with support from our partners, Kewasnet included, we have employed now different approach. For those that are, we have classified them, those that are in the red side, that's where we have highest concentration of OD. We are saying that one we continue using the CLTS approach, but still we are working on reviewing the protocol so that at least the protocol we have been using, it's uniform, both ASAL counties and non-ASAL counties, the high potential areas. We have been using a uniform approach, which we have realized in some, we call them ASAL counties, it's not working well. So we are working with the partners, we are reviewing the CLTS protocol so that it can be sensitive to some of the, we can call geographical area of that, geographical conditions of that area. There are also areas that are moderate. We are trying with support from partners, we are now advising those communities to use both CLTS and even what we call now market-based approaches, so that we improve those structures. Because the CLTS approach, the kind of structures that are that people come up with, they are not sustainable. They cannot be sustained for 1 year or 2. We advise them that once you come up with that structure, you have known the value of a toilet. We need to move up the sanitation ladder. We improve those facilities so that we can, our aim as a country and globally is to ensure there is what we call safely managed fecal matter. When it is safely managed, chances of you contaminating or contracting a disease through fecal matter will be very minimal. So for those that don't have a toilet, we want them to come up with a toilet. Those with a toilet but is not improved, we want them to improve as they move up the sanitation ladder. So as partners, I know Kewasnet, you have a very good network. We need you to come on board, guide us, especially for those areas that have become ODF. For us to ensure that this community does not go back to OD, we come up with the best technologies, good technologies, so that are more sustainable, more acceptable to the community, and to some extent, they must be cost effective, so that the communities are not discouraged from using them because maybe they are extremely expensive. So for those that have already become ODF, we request that the partners through your network will bring them on board so that they can assist those communities. We don't want, again, people, you know, CLTS is not, it is a non-subsidy. We don't give free things, but incentives are allowed. If we can come up with an incentive that can improve even those structures, improve, but targeting a group, especially for public, for health, we prefer community units. If you can target a particular community unit or a village, and you give them a certain incentive that can improve. I've seen some areas like Busia. We used to have, I think, finishing, which was more concerned on the superstructure and the slab. Recently, we have seen Lexil. I don't know whether we have a representative of Lexil here. They were more focused on the seat hole only, because we have found it is a challenge when you advise people to come up with a seat hole cover, and when we go to the field, we just find it has been just put there for you to see. It doesn't work. But if you use some of those technologies we have seen, like Lexil, the Satos, they have self-closing. What we call the seat hole cover is self-closing. Once you use it, it closes immediately. So there is no chances of a fly entering or be able to get in contact with the fecal matter. So for those that are better off high potential areas, we are applying the market-based approach, and I think it's now working very well. And we don't want to be talking about diarrhea diseases in this century. Diarrhea diseases, all of them, you must have come into contact with a human fecal matter. So, through your effort and other partners and the intersectoral collaboration within government, we hope we can be in a position to eliminate totally open defecation and improve our sanitary facilities to what we call the safely managed fecal matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leonard. It's quite interesting to know exactly where we are in terms of sanitation, in terms of CLTS. And I'm sure many CSOs, again, this is their area, and they are down on the ground, really working quite hard so that people will have access to sanitation. I want to announce that we will not have a break, but you can just go out if you feel that you need a snack. You can just sneak out a little, just get a cup, get your snack, and then come back here. Because we have people online, we don't want to have a break. So the people that are in here, you can just go there right now, serve it, go out there, then have your snack and come back. I think they're already serving. Yeah, thank you. I think we are quite doing well in terms of time. And so without much ado, I'll request those people online to continue recording your questions, continue putting your questions down, and even those ones that plenary is coming, and we'll be able to address this. And so we go to the gist of the matter today, and we get to hear about the report itself. We get to hear about the findings. We get to hear about the methodology that was used to get this information, and all about the report. So without let's put our hands together and welcome Joan just to come over and then take us through this. Let's give a round of applause even as she comes through. Most welcome.
For my hand. Ladies and gentlemen, here with us physically today, and those joining us virtually, good morning. My name is Joan Cones. I'm the National Research Coordinator at KEWASNET, as I earlier introduced myself, and I'm really, really excited to now finally take you through the report itself. So before I start my presentation, I would like to convey greetings from one of my colleagues, Vincent Ouma, the head of programs, who wasn't able to join us today. And I would also like to pass apologies from WhatsApp through Eden Marty, as they were not able to join us today, but they're really looking forward to reading the report. All right, first slide, please. Okay, so at KEWASNET, we envision a society with sustainable universal access to safely managed water and sanitation. And as such, over the years, we've been implementing programs in water resource management, water supply, sanitation, and hygiene. And so we've been implementing these programs and we continue to do so. And since the year 2015, with the generous contribution and from Embassy of Sweden, Danish People's Aid and SIMAVI, we've been able to produce the CSO report, which has now become the voice of the sector. So we are now dubbing it as the voice, and this is the 7th edition of the report. And as Mr. Alube said, it's the 2nd edition that we are calling the voice. And the purpose of this report is to foster continuous learning among the WASH and WRM CSOs as well as to enhance accountability, effectiveness, efficiency, and sustainability of WASH and WRM projects. Next slide, please. So I'll now take you through the methodology very briefly. And I forgot to say, in case you have any questions, please note them down and we can answer them all at the end of the presentation. So in terms of methodology, we use a design called a sequential explanatory approach, where we had both primary data collection as well as secondary data collection through quantitative methods, and then we use qualitative methods later on to validate the results from the self-reported information. And the target population for this report were CBOs, FBOs, NGOs, both local and international, trusts, among others, and we covered all 47 counties in Kenya to ensure that the report is as representative as possible. And we use a sampling technique that we call purposive sampling. And the data sources, as I indicated earlier, were both primary and secondary, including literature reviews, surveys, as well as key informant interviews. So there are a number of themes in this study, or that this study explored, and I'll go through them very briefly. And these included the profiles of these CSOs and the social enterprises. And when we talk about their profiles, what we're asking them was the legal and registration status, as well as the geographical coverage, that is the areas that they work in the country. And we also looked at the theme of the CSO and social enterprises investments in WASH and WRM. So what we really wanted to know about this is the type of investments that they have, as well as the size of investments, the sources of funding, the number of beneficiaries, as well as the counties that they are investing in. We also look at the type of interventions of these CSOs, including the type of approaches that they use in their programs, as well as the major components that they're implementing in WASH and WRM. We also looked at quality control and compliance, of course, with the required standards, as well as gaining or the approvals for their various projects. And last but not least, we also looked at sustainability of their programs. Next slide, please. In terms of data quality control, to ensure that the data that we received for this report was accurate, of course, the research teams were trained thoroughly prior to the data collection exercise, and also pre-testing was done, the pre-testing of tools, to ensure that all researchers ask the questions are the same way. There are also daily data checks, and at the end, data was cleaned to eliminate any inconsistencies. Next slide, please. So given that we are living in COVID times and the data was collected during COVID, the COVID pandemic, all COVID protocols were observed by ensuring that most of the data was collected virtually. And in instances that there was physical data collection, especially for the validation exercise, we ensured that all protocols were observed, including wearing masks all the time and sanitizing as much as possible, and of course, keeping social distance. Next slide, please. I'll now go to the interesting bit, and I'll be as clear as possible on this. I saw the findings of the research. The previous slide, please, quickly. Yeah, so what the findings entail, just a little bit of an overview. I'll talk about the contribution of these CSOs in the financial year 2019-2020, as well as project management. And we'll also look at integrity, quality, and compliance. And this is because the CSO report is not only looking into the investments by the CSOs and the impact, but we also want to understand, or to rather view the integrity and quality compliance of these CSOs. And we're also looking at enabling environment for WASH and WRM. So in terms of participation, we had 205 civil society organizations taking part in this study, which we are really happy about. because it was at 21%, where we only had 170 CSOs participating. So this is to show that there is potential. And moving forward, we are even hoping that more CSOs can be open to take part in this study. And in terms of the social enterprises, we had 49 taking part in this study, which was huge, 200% increase from 15 that we involved in the previous year. And the highest number of participating institutions were the local NGOs at 36%, followed closely by community-based organizations at 28%. And you can see the self-help groups were at 4% and trusts were at 2%. So we really need to reach out to them to ensure that we get more participation from them moving forward. So in terms of now the contribution, next slide please. So as the CEO, Mr. Malesi, earlier indicated, in the year 2019-2020, the total investment by the CSOs was 11.4 billion, which was a 1.7% increase from the contribution of the investment in the year 2018-2019. So this is really a big deal because we are looking at 205 CSOs contributing 11.4 billion or investing 11.4 billion in the sector. And this is a substantial amount given that in the year 2019-2020, the government investment in WASH and WRM was at 57 billion shillings. So you can only imagine if we did more research and had more CSOs participating, then we're likely to even see a higher figure than the 11.4. And then, according to some of the key informants, the reason behind this increase was probably because of more funding coming in to go towards COVID-19 response. So this is quite a crowded slide, but I just want to point out a few. So this is in terms of investments of CSOs in WASH and WRM per county. So it was really interesting to see that a number of CSOs operating in different counties had an increase in the investments as compared to 2018-2019. And among those that really stood out in terms of increment was Isiolo County, where CSOs investing or working there had their investment increased from 169 million Kenya shillings to 483 million. So that is 314 million increments. I'll also use one more example of Kitui, where the CSOs working in Kitui increased their investments from 263 million. So they increased their investments from 40 million in the year 2018-2019 to 263 million 460,000 in 2019-2020. It's also worth noting that not all CSOs or not all counties were really doing well in terms of investment. And as you can see, Kisumu County, for example, they went down in terms of investment. When you compare the investment in the year 2018-2019 to 2019-2020, there was a decrease by 669 million, 657. Another one that really went down in terms of investment was Marsabit as a result of some funders withdrawing from working in these areas. And Marsabit went down by over 1 billion shillings in terms of investment. So we really need to discuss this and see how we can change this. The next slide, please. So now, when we look at the distribution of the investments in terms of types of organization, we see that the highest was foundations. Sorry, not foundations. That should be at 29%. We have societies. I need my glasses, sorry. So the highest organization in terms of investment of this 11.4 billion is societies, and that was followed closely by the NGOs, and I believe that is foundations, or faith-based organizations. Yes. All right, next slide, please. And then I'm not going to break down the investments by components or the type of projects that these CSOs focus on. And as you can see from this graph, safely managed water supply took a huge chunk of the investment at over 30%. And it was followed closely by investments in lobby, advocacy, and promoting good governance in WASH and WRM. But there's still a lot of work needed in climate change. As you can see, the lowest investment went to climate change. And this is a subject that is really coming up, but it still needs a lot of investment and more focus on. And then this is now the sources of funding for the CSOs. So the funders were divided into several categories. I'll go through them really briefly. So we have bilateral donors, and including foreign governments like CEDA. We also have multilateral donors and the UN agencies. We have non-profit and non-governmental organizations such as SIMAVI, among others, religious institutions. We also have the public sector, that is government financing, both at national level through the Water Sector Trust Fund, as well as at the county level. Next, please. And then in terms of beneficiaries, so in the year 2019-2020, we see the number of beneficiaries has really gone up almost 3 times. In the year 2018-2019, the beneficiaries were at 10 million, but now we are looking at 27 million. But when you look at these bars, you realize that a higher number of beneficiaries is women. So we went from saying that more women, we need to empower more women, we need more projects for women. Now we are leaving the man behind. So we need to think about that. Next slide, please. And then in terms of projects management, these CSOs integrated various project implementation approaches, and the most used approach by these CSOs was networking and collaboration, and it was followed by human rights-based approach, and the least used kind of approaches were sanitation, marketing, and water stewardship. So those are the least used type of approaches. In the plenary session, we can discuss why that is the case. And then now, integrity, quality, and compliance. So in terms of the content analysis and community engagement, so what this graph looks at is how the assessed CSOs did when it comes to some selected good practices. And the green bar or the green bit indicates that there is no documentation, or yes, there is documentation, but not sufficient. And then the blue means there is good documentation. And then the yellow, or that is orange, means there is no documentation at all. So it was really good to see that most of these CSOs, for example, did stakeholder analysis. 82% of them said yes, they did stakeholder analysis. They also did needs assessment. And another practice that was practiced a lot was communication of future roles and responsibilities. But you also see that it was quite alarming to see that up to 27% of the CSOs did not have an exit strategy. They had not documented any exit strategy, as you can see at the bottom bar. And there was also 23% who did not have capacity assessment for operation and management. So this really brings up the question of sustainability. If, for example, a number of institutions do not have an exit strategy, then it really beats the logic of, having all this work done and at the end having no sustainability. And that reminds me of the other day at a global handwashing event, where the issue of sustainability came up. That why are we bringing so many projects to you, yet once we leave, they are not sustainable? You keep saying the project from Kewasnet, the project from Red Cross, which shouldn't be the case. So we really need to discuss the issue of sustainability. And then in terms of government engagement, So a good number, that is 150 out of the 205 CSOs, indicated that they had some form of engagement with government in terms of WASH and WRM planning at the county level. And a good number, that is 117 out of the 205, had signed MOUs with relevant ministries, but still there's an 88 out of the 205 that had no form of MOU with the relevant ministry or governments. And then in terms of government for financing activities of these CSOs, a huge number, that is 157 of the CSOs, indicated that they did not receive co-finance from the county government. And then on quality and compliance check, we had two questions as to whether the CSOs had overview of all the contractual obligations, and also the question on whether the CSOs had approval protocols for contractors' work. And it's encouraging to see that up to 42% of the CSOs had an overall or overview of all their contractual obligations. But it's unfortunate that up to 23% did not have any form of documentation on their contractual obligations. So that's something that we also need to talk about. And in terms of the protocol for contractual work, a good number, that is 59% said that yes, they had signed approval protocols. Next slide, please. And then in terms of planning and implementation, the question was as to whether the CSOs had concrete implementation plan as a basis for monitoring progress. So a good percentage, that is 52%, said yes, they had an elaborate implementation plan, but there's still a 16% that do not have any form of documentation, meaning that it's very difficult to monitor their progress. And then in terms of status of project documentation of budgets and accounting or financial reporting, a good number at 82% indicated that they had detailed project budget and they had project financial reports. Next slide, please. And then on reporting and learning, there were two questions as to whether the CSOs agree on meaningful reporting standards and indicators with funders. So a good number, that is 76%, said yes, they do reports with meaningful reporting standards being available. And then in terms of whether the donor verified project outputs and outcomes, a good number said yes, the donor verified their project outputs, but there is a 14% that indicated that the funder did not verify the project outputs and outcomes. As I come close to the end, I'll talk about integrity and accountability. So most of the respondents indicated that they understood what constituted corrupt practices, and up to 77% indicated that the issue of corruption was discussed as a risk to performance in the organizations, but a good number at 80 say perceived risk of corruption to be very low in the areas of operations. Then enabling environment for WASH and WRM. So what this study indicated is that government leadership facilitates functionality of a sector through a number of ways, and that is through providing a clear vision to guide operations of implementing organizations, and also through involving all stakeholders in the development of policies and strategies. This can lead to enhanced ownership and strengthening of partnership with government. Next slide, please. And then in terms of legal environment, this study indicated that there is a clear legal framework for the sector, which governs access to WASH and as well as conservation of resources. And it also indicated that the Kenyan Constitution, as we all know, acknowledges the importance of water, and the fact that water is a human right is recognized in the Constitution. The Water Act of 2016 that was passed by the government is also a key enabler, providing legal framework for water conservation and use. And then on this slide on knowledge and learning in WASH and WRM sector, so this report indicated that information on the sector is shared and accessed freely through several avenues. So accessing the information wasn't too difficult. However, accessing government publications and those by various institutions within these sectors, as I will indicate later on, wasn't so easy. But information sharing opportunities, including workshops, conferences, and summits, would go a long way in sharing knowledge that is generated, that is for dissemination purposes. And this study also indicated that a number of publicly available repositories provided information on WASH and WRM. And to ensure sustainability, there are a number of things that this report indicated. And number one is there is need to align to legal and regulatory requirements. There's also a need for information sharing, there's need for capacity building, and of course, behavior change communication. All right, and then in terms of COVID-19 response, the CSOs played a key role in response to COVID-19. And I believe I can just go through a couple. Like COVID-19 interventions were merged with ongoing WASH and WRM activities to maximize synergies of resources to sustainability. And then due to restriction in movement and assembly, a number of CSOs have moved now to virtual activities and therefore saving costs, but there's still the challenge of reaching stakeholders located in remote areas who cannot access the virtual platforms. And then finally, I'll talk about the recommendations. And the first set of recommendations is to the CSOs and social enterprises. So this report indicated that this report identified a number of opportunities for revitalizing the role of CSOs in policy and budget advocacy, such as supporting county governments to develop WASH action plans and strategies, as well as rallying the wider stakeholders around plans for coordinated investments. And then, given the business orientation of social enterprises, they really have a great potential to add enormous value to embedding business thinking into WASH. And as such, there is need to provide a conducive environment for them to operate. And then recommendations to the government, that is both at national and county level. So information on government, as I earlier stated, on government investment in WASH and WRM wasn't very easy to access and to track. And this is because this information is in multiple places, or rather is in multiple places, disbursed budget lines across multiple sectors. So the recommendation from this report is that it would be very helpful if information on government budget structures could be consolidated in one place so that we don't have to really look in various sectors. And then this report also highlighted the reality that the current level of investment, Kenya is still off track when it comes to meeting the SDG goal number 6, and therefore government really needs to increase domestic funding for WASH and WRM. There's also a need for more resources to go towards climate change. As you saw, climate change was the least invested in area from this report. Next slide, please. Yeah, so recommendations to the funding agencies. So as a country, we still need more investment in WASH and WRM in order to address the inequities in the sector. And then the COVID-19 pandemic, with the race to achieve SDG 6, to be a wake-up call for all funding agencies to shift away from business as usual approaches and to work more towards universal access to sustainable service delivery. And then in terms of WASH budget tracking, advocacy and accountability, this is an area that still remains key priority. And software areas for funding agencies. Funding agencies need to invest more in software. And then I think now this is my last slide. Recommendations for KEWASNet. So as KEWASNet, we hold a unique platform for networking, collaboration, and cooperation among the CSOs and social enterprises. And this report really calls upon us as KEWASNet to maximize the goodwill that we enjoy from the members and funders and the Kenyan government to advocate for and spearhead programs that will propel us to achieve SDG goal number 6. And then KEWASNet and its members should also utilize available opportunities presented by COVID-19 by using the powerful position in the WASH and WRM sector to lobby for higher prioritization of WASH in government development agenda. All right, so this report couldn't have been possible without the wonderful support from the Embassy of Sweden, the Danish People's Aid, Stimavi, and of course the study consultant that I believe has joined us virtually, Reinit Research Institute, and then the KEWASNet staff, of course, and all our research participants. And we call upon more participants to take part in this study in the coming year. So thank you so much.
KEWASNet Partnership, Capacity Building, Networking, Right to Water and Sanitation, Our Vision, Our Mission, Strategic Objectives, Our Core Values, Strategy House, Strategy Summary.
Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene.
KEWASNet, improving governance in the water and sanitation sector.
Others did not participate. Yeah, so these are the things that we really need to see how do we reach them again. Just as Joanna has said, that for those ones who did not participate, yeah, we need to see how they will participate. And that just becomes my question number one. What are some of the challenges that we face in coming up with this report, so that also members would know what are some of the challenges that were actually there in coming up with this report, so that we can improve, because our aim is to improve, our aim is to do better, our aim is to report. We also need to be accountable. Some of us, we don't want to share our budgets, we don't want to share what is happening. We come into the counties, for lack of a better word, incognito, without anybody knowing that we are in those counties, that we are doing anything in those counties. Meetings are called, we are not there. And so we'd like just to know maybe if there are any challenges that were there in collecting this particular report, then that would be good for the members to know, that we also improve on that. And as we said, we are waiting for your questions. All questions, I think, as we said, just go to the chat box and just put them in there. And if you really like to talk, let us know that you would want to talk, so that we are going to give you a link. And then through that link, you'll be able to address us. And so we are in the plenary, and we'll welcome questions right away, right from the first
speaker up to Joan, who has presented to us the report itself. Now we know what the report is speaking about. We know exactly which areas. First, congratulations, especially for the investment in the counties. I think that was great. That was quite great, and yeah, we expect just to see more happening, and this translating even for the counties. Yeah, if I am sure maybe the consultant has that, what went to governance, what went to WRM, what went to water supply within the counties itself. That would also be an interesting kind of statistics and data that we could have. Otherwise, if there is any question, let us know. Any question within the plenary, so that as they are answering about the challenges, then they can also add your question on that. Any question? Let's have somebody helping us with the mic. And also online, we are expecting your questions. I would like to answer as many as we can, so that we come out of this place with with clarity, knowing what we can do better next time. Yeah, thank you very much. And as I also said, you can sneak out. I think tea is still being served. You can get your cup of tea, and then you come and we stay in and continue. I'll give the mic to Madam Asa.
That is very commendable, Team Kewasnet. I have a few questions. I hope I remember all of them. The first question is, do you have an exact figure of how much the CSOs contributed to the COVID-19 response? And then this being self-reporting, how do you go about ensuring that the data is not biased? If I remember the rest, I will.
Thank you very much. Yeah, even as others continue thinking about that, we will give it to Joan, so that Joan can respond to those two. They're free now, and there's a challenge that maybe the consultants were able to face during the collection of this data. It is good for us to know, because some of us NGOs sometimes we don't want even to report. We don't want to report completely. And when we report, we are also so economic with the truth. We don't want to give the whole truth. And yet, this is data that is helping the nation. I think the nation, we are really behind in terms of data. Just the other day, I think in the TWGs that we've been having, we realized that there's a real gap in terms of data. Yeah, and when we were just looking at various publications and I've gone out there. Today we've had from WASREP 57% water coverage. When you go to some of those voluntary reporting, you get a very different figure. When you come back to the counties, you get very different figures. And that's why it is important that all of us, we really come out strongly and really be accountable and be able to report. And that is why no, it's important. I mean, we can't emphasize more on that. It's you who is receiving the money. You just need to be accountable. You need the government to be accountable. You also need to be accountable in terms of reporting, in terms of telling us where you are, in terms of reporting how much resources you've actually put on the ground. Yeah, so John, welcome.
All right, thank you so much for your questions. I believe I've received 3 so far, and 2 are really quite similar. So Mr. Alube, you asked about the challenges in data collection, and then Asha, you asked about bias due to self-reporting. So to answer the question on challenges, one of them was the bias that Asha you're talking about, and that triangulation of data was used to overcome that. And of course, also looking into literature to see what has already been done and to confirm some of this information. And again, as I indicated in the type of data collection methods that we used, we had the validation exercise where the researcher would go back to validate the results, in addition, of course, to triangulation to overcome that bias. And then Mr. Lube, the challenges, that was one of them. And the second challenge was a number of CSOs declining to participate. So there's a number, about 500 CSOs were reached or were tried, but only 205 agreed to participate. So we are really calling upon other CSOs to come forward, moving forward, to really take part in this process. And then another challenge that we had was accessing information on budgets within the county government documents. As I indicated earlier, it's not easy finding the data on budgets, especially in counties, because this information is distributed across a number of sectors. So that was another challenge. And then in terms of COVID data, I would like to welcome my colleague to tell us a little bit more about that. Our CEO, Mr. Mandesi, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, thank you. This was something that we tried to pursue, but a little bit later into the study, because we started to acknowledge that there was quite a significant contribution from COVID as was being reported, but that had not been an original parameter of measurement when we were starting the study. So the way we approached it was much more abstract than very metric. We didn't specifically target the COVID numbers because it was a reality that came to us a little bit later. But now that I have the mic, let me just add something around what John has spoken to about the challenges. And a bit of history is important to give the context of this challenge. But when we began reporting in the year 2014, end of the year 2014, our realization was that one of the things we wanted to achieve was to contribute to the annual sector report. And this was run by the ministry. And one of the things that is very specific, and you can also see from this report, is that we basically make reference to the government year. And that is why we are saying 2019/2020. But in reality, not all civil society organizations and social enterprises have the same financial year. And as a result, when the reporting is done, there are shifts in terms of what is the reference period or what is the reference data. And in most cases, the CSOs will have data that is relative to their financial year or relative to their financing agreements that they have with their particular financiers. So this is also related to the question about the bias, because in a sense there is approximation to some level by CSOs, because in some sense they may not have finished a project period, and therefore they are just saying that within this period we have done this, but it's still an ongoing project. Then there is also the issue of the parameters. So I know one of the challenges that CSOs have expressed consistently about our inquiry is the volume or the length of the questionnaire, which in some cases is suggested to be very long, and therefore introductory remarks. This is a voluntary process. As Joanna said, yes, we send out to the 300 plus. 100 of them decline or just do not respond, and we just accept it as it is because it's a voluntary process. There is no compelling mechanism or intent for that matter, because we feel accountability needs to be self-driven, internally driven, rather than a whip. And so there is that challenge of the fact that it is voluntary, but also the fact that when we have this questionnaire with its parameters, does it align with how these organizations report internally? Are they reporting on the same parameters? For example, are they reporting on the same issues that we are measuring performance on? For example, when we start saying compliance, is it the same? And have we gotten to that level where everybody is measuring the same? And I just think, even going forward, when we want now to start saying, you see, like WASREP spoke to 57%, and then they broke it down and say, out of this 57%, this is certainly managed, this is basic. Are we able, as civil society, to demonstrate the same level of segregation of data? At the moment, we do not think we are reporting to that level of segregation, and that's part of the challenge, because when now you go and ask these questions, it tends to increase the level of bias because the projection starts. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bwana Malesi. I can see several other questions online. Yeah, I don't know, it's idea at least we have one more. Yes, engineer.
Thank you very much. Just two quick points of clarification. I don't know whether the study looked into the reporting structures that are there for the CSOs and SEs. These achievements that they are reporting, is it going into the government information system in any way? Who are they reporting to? Second issue, if you look at the beneficiaries that are reported, jumped from 10 point something to 27.7 million. The numbers jumped from 10 to 27.7. Yet the investments marginally increased by 1.7% from 11.2 to 11.4. Did you interrogate that position?
Thank you very much. Any other question? Yeah, job 254. I think speaking on not safely managed water supply indicators that had the highest investment is the disaggregation. I think that is what Malis was talking about on the actual intervention available, especially addressing the NRW. And then Patrick Mwanzia, thank you for your comment. You're saying dissenting voices for positive change doesn't always need to take activities. Activists, I think, pathway, it can take a cool and professional lens and to focus. KWASNET has demonstrated good practice. So this is just what we are getting online. I'm seeing Lucy Mlenke, thank you for being there. Just saying that different presentations are great and very, very informative. And so these are some of the comments that are coming through, even through online. Yeah, so I'll give it to John to be answer those questions that have already come, those ones from engineer, and then from Job 254. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Engineer, for your questions. I will start with the first one on whether these CSOs have a way of ensuring that their findings reach government. So one of the things that I showed in my presentation is that a good number of these CSOs report back to their donors, but there are no clear ways, at least based on our research, there are no clear channels that they use to ensure that their findings reach government. And as I also indicated, it wasn't easy finding this information online, an indication that the reporting is still wanting to some extent. So I think moving forward, that is something that you can also consider, ensuring or rather advocating for these CSOs to ensure that their findings do not just stay with them and their funders, but to also be out there and to reach the government channels. And then your second question was on investments. That investments increased from by 1.7%, yet the beneficiaries increased almost threefold. And one of the reasons why we see an increased number of beneficiaries was because of the funding that came in towards COVID-19. So that was a major contributor to the increase of the beneficiaries. And something that I did not project was that the highest number of beneficiaries were actually households and schools, which is, can be explained by the number of projects that have brought, for example, hand washing facilities to schools, and a number of households being able to receive water during this COVID-19 pandemic. Unless somebody has more information.
Yeah, I think, okay, Malaysia has something, yeah. But I think also maybe the data might not be very new beneficiaries. Some of these are already more within the areas that are covered, but they have been actually serviced by the NGOs within that particular areas, yeah. Because if you have to take maybe 50, 27 plus whatever was there, then we would be at around 80s and 90s like that. But maybe it's within that areas that are already being served. Yeah, so Malaysia.
Yeah, if I just pick it up from where you have stopped, that actually, as Joanna has correctly said, the increased investment was largely as a result of COVID-19 response investment. And in reality, actually, most of the CSOs actually faced a dip in investment over the last 1 year. As much as we are reporting increased investment, the reality is that on average, there was a decline in the amount of resources available to CSOs, especially during this COVID period. And one way you can look at it is not just from the 1.7 billion increase, but also from the fact that we are having more CSOs to around the 21% increase, but they are only reflecting a 1.7 billion increase. It means that on average, if you look at the individual contribution on average, then it has gone down. And yes, the number of beneficiaries was largely due to that COVID response, and largely also because CSOs will largely report software, what we call software. So these are intangibles. So like capacity building, awareness creation, and so on. And during COVID period, this has been quite a lot in the last 1 year. With regards to how this information then trickles to government, as I mentioned, this report by itself was traditionally or originally designed to fit into the annual water sector report. And I think we have continued to remain available to support that. But in the absence of that, we make the report available to other processes. So for example, Engineer Chego will be aware that they recently released investment report in the sector by Washington and the ministry. This particular report, the data from this particular report has already been included, and therefore that is the CSOs feeding into that. But also when there are other processes like the GLASS report, the AMCOW country report, SWA, we would, on behalf of civil society, make this available to all government reporting.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for your participation. We will still get the questions, and in case you have any question, kindly let us know so that at least we'll be able to give you feedback on the same. Otherwise, I am saying we are now at that particular point that we'll go ahead and invite our chief guest so that the chief guest will make, yeah. There's one question? Yes, yeah, shortly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Just an observation. I was quite struck by the figures given. 4.7%, 4.7. It is 10% OD. Yes, striking. So I think there is really a call to look into that area of sanitation. Other than that, I would like to ask Mr. the guy who is spending the ministry, how far is the national sanitation management policy up to date, up to now? I mean, because those policies really maybe just be going round and round. I think also for the information trickling down or up, this report and other reports, mainly on water and wash sanitation. I think that those counties and areas that wash and WR forums are active, that's a sharing forum. And we do hope that through those forums, which are led by the sector, the water sector, I mean, a lot of information is being shared by different NGOs and different other players within the water sector. And that information should also trickle down and trickle up to the concerned ministries, and so that even if it goes up to wherever it goes up, to visit from the grassroots.
Yeah, thank you very much. Leonard, yes.
Thank you very much. I think for the sanitation management policy, it is domiciled the Minister of Water. I don't know if Engineer Chego can answer it. What we developed, and it is already being implemented, and I think we did it with support from UNICEF and World Bank, was environmental health, sanitation, and hygiene policy, which was launched in 2016. And then we came up with a strategy of the same for 2016-2030. The policy was up to 2025, I think, the environmental health and sanitation policy. And then we also came up with the ODF roadmap which was 2015-2020. Now we are renewing the roadmap because we did not meet the target. So we are renewing the ODF roadmap, Open Defecation Free roadmap, for 2020-2025. Yeah, but it was, I hope Engineer Chemo can answer.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm sure your engineer will have something to say on that, even as he comes over. Nanjala, we have seen a comment that there is a need for culture change in the staffs of WSP to enhance the service delivery in order to ensure that
no one is left behind. And yeah, she's saying that Kawasnet also should support in this area. So thank you very much. And so I take this time to welcome our engineer so that we will now proceed to the official launch after his remarks. Thank you very much. Let's now give a round of applause even as we welcome engineer to this place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear participants in the room, those are joining us virtually, a very good morning. On behalf of the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, it's always a pleasure to join this event, this annual event, the launch of the Voice. We are committed and partners in this process since the launch in 2015. Personally, I've been attending this in 2017 in the process. And it's part of the commitment of the Ministry of Water to this process of having our key partners in WASH, the non-state actors and social enterprises, come out in the open and account for what they're doing. Increasingly, in the workspace, enhancing accountability has become a very important objective of the sector over the years. In the last 15 or so years, where we have looked at the sector performance, governance has always been indicated to be a key topical issue that the players need to look into, need to have a candid conversation around, and see what are the best options that we can take as a sector to move it forward. We all acknowledge and agree that reporting process helps us to understand where we are, helps us to make decisions. It increases our accountability, openness, and transparency the way we are doing business. It also helps us to be accountable to our constituencies, whether it is our partners who are supporting the initiatives, whether it's our customers who are receiving our services. And all in all, we believe there's a very direct benefit to this increased service provision for WASH to Kenyans. We want to appreciate that this process of the Voice directly addresses the accountability mandate by the non-state actors in the sector. Because the accountability process that we are promoting as a sector, as a government, gives each of the stakeholders a particular accountability means. If I zero on just two key actors in this space, the government itself and the regulators, they have the accountability mechanism of improving the policy strategies, the rule of law, and the human rights to water and sanitation. So in this space,
the government has its own mandate, and which we are committed to as a ministry and our partner ministry, Ministry of Health and others, to support the initiative. And just to highlight some of the issues that we are doing to carry out this accountability mechanism, one of them which is key is the intergovernmental cooperation space. We continue to appreciate that the national government, the county government have the mandate to ensure that the environment is right, there's adequate investment, there's good governance to ensure that wash services reach Kenyans. So under this space, we have an intergovernmental framework that was agreed a January on, and we are currently working on the implementation modalities. And that will set the stage for intergovernmental arrangement. But let me say, while that is work in progress, there are still coordination mechanisms that are already existing. You might be aware that the Cabinet Secretary formed the National Task Force on the Investment and Debt Restructuring, and part of the big part of that task force is from the county government framework and the Council of Governors. And already it's working, it's delivering what's expected of them, and there's already work that is working. The second item under the accountability mechanism from the national regulator I'd like to mention is the issue of the National Sanitation Management Policy. This was done through a very coordinated approach, very inclusive, and right now we have a draft National Sanitation Management Policy that is being looked by the management, the leadership of the ministry, and awaiting direction in terms of engaging the parliamentarians and other agencies for their views and comments. So we really want to appreciate. We involved all the 47 counties through 6 regions, and we went through rounds of consultation. We collected their views and we went for validation in the process. So we are guiding that process, and that's where we are. The third item under that is the water policy, which is now with the parliament. It's being worked on. And the fourth item that I would like the participants to be aware of is the review of the Water Act 2016. That has been worked, and we have proposals that are with Parliament and the Attorney General for review. So that is the expectation on the accountability space by the government, and for the non-state actors, it is expected that their contribution and involvement in this space will bring positive change to beneficiaries, and there is value for money from the development partners. And this is what has been demonstrated today. It's very key. Let me join the others in appreciating the 11.4 billion that has gone into wash space. I'm sure that if all the 500 plus partners, NGOs had provided the necessary data in the research, it is likely to be more. And that makes me the issue I was trying to raise about how do we collect our data and information to ensure that at the wash sector we report the actual investment that is required. As you're all aware, we have a gap of about 50 billion per year. For us to be able to reach the SDGs is slightly more than that now, going to 65. But if we're able to collect all this data from the partners and we put all this together, actually the gap will be smaller. I believe it's much smaller. And again, the gap will be smaller, and two, there's likelihood that the reported figures for access to wash services will also increase. Because again, there's a lot of data and information that is missing from the government led information system. So we again, we are proud of this achievement by Kewasnet and partners. We will continue to work towards elements that have been recommended, issues of information system, inputs about bringing on board climate change interventions that need to be mainstreamed in our programs, a key element about sustainability of all that interventions that we do. And again, from where we sit, I request that we try as much as possible to refocus, put more efforts, more resources into water resources management and sanitation. Because I think this has not been quite well supported, and even the report has indicated that there's been a lot of focus on water supply services, but we need again to move towards ensuring the resources there. So investments in water resources management, interventions. Going forward, another recommendation I would like request Kewasnet to look at is in case of the advocacy area. We would like you to be look at more efforts, put more efforts to engage decision makers, particularly the National Assembly and others, to advocate for more resources, engage water development partners to lobby for more resources, more inputs, whether it's money or technical assistance to this space. And we would like, as we report from next year, The Voice, I would like you to bring an element of what you as partners have done, particularly at the national stage, on advocating for more inputs from the national government, from the international space, to be able to get more resources flow into the sector. I would like also, as you look at this, this is there. As you look at this also, I would like you to lobby for more partners to start looking into tapping into the climate change facilities that are available for us. As a country, we have not been very strong in this space, and I think it will be a good forum to start thinking about supporting our partners to tap into those climate change facilities, particularly to support water resources management and support sanitation. Otherwise, in terms of ministry, we are committed. We stand to support you in this space. And like was mentioned by Shivaji, the original strategy was that this report will fit into the annual sector report that is prepared normally by the ministry. This has not been done for the last 3 or so years, but now we have agreed with the county governments to start this process as a joint process to have a national annual sector report together, and we hope the plan is that this will fit into that particular space. But like I mentioned, this report fits into other avenues that support the discussion, the conversation around the workspace in Kenya. Otherwise, we are very much appreciative. We believe this sets a stage for increased accountability and supports the efforts by WASREB and others to support the wash sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer. Yeah, thank you for those remarks, and I'm sure also, Kenny, you've heard where we are in terms of the national sanitation management policy, and also the involvement of the CSOs in that particular process, and also in the counties that it all went. Thank you so much, Engineer. That was profound. I'm sure the WASNET has taken the challenge that you've already given to them. And so now we will go into the launch, and even as they prepare for them now to launch the CSO, the voice number 2, we will just rise, and once they are ready, are you ready? So that we just arise and just applaud when engineer and when Amalesi just comes near, so that they will be able to lead us in the process. I'm sure the cameras are on, and also people online will be able to see exactly what is happening, even as we go to launch. It's another exciting moment. It's quite a good moment for us to see this coming to pass. And I'm sure you'll also be given the link where you will find the document. Now you can be able to read it. Immediately it has been launched. You can be able to get access to it, and you can be able to read and know exactly what is happening. It's an exciting moment. So for us behind there, let's just stand, all of us, as they go to launch, and then after that, we'll be able to also be part of this, because I'm sure I'm going to give us some few copies, some few people. Yes, yes, we will. Okay, so after that, we'll have a bit of some few people getting copies directly from here, but the rest of the team will be told where we are going to get it. Yeah, thank you very much. And now to the official launch, I'll give it to engineer again.
Oh, this counting down here. All right, thank you so much. I want us to, sorry, this mic is off. But I want us to officially just do the countdown from 5, 4 up to 0. So by the time we do 0, all of us, yes, we are going to officially allow our chief guests in the jingle so that we can automatically launch the annual session for 2019-2020. So let's start from 5. All right, so thank you. Let's start from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to officially launch the.
Asante sana, asante sana. That was great. Yes, yes. I hope you're not running. That was great. Yeah. So we'll have a few of them just being given out. We are giving a copy. Yes, yes. Yeah. Take a good photo together. It's nice, with that one. It's nice. Yeah. Thank you. Asa ungekuja pande hii pia wewe hapa kidogo. Yes. Yes, Asa. Yes, yes. To represent pale. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. So in terms of the others, Ziman, okay, I can come through also, you can join. Yes, yes. Yeah, just for the sake of a picture, Ministry of Health, yes, yes. Kujamba. Yeah.
Thank you. That's the voice. Makofi mengine pia mazuri. Yes, yes. It's officially launched, and I'm sure you'll be told where to get it. You'll be told the link through. Let's have a new also coming in. A new welcome. The 2/3 are not be also reached. You can come through here. Yes, yes, yes. That is good now. Yeah. Okay. Yes, yes. Give it a good smile. Nice. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, yes, yes. Again, now we have the document. Yes, yes. Yeah, so with that, allow me, even as we take our seats, yes, this is already launched. We have it already. Thank you very much. I'll request Asha just to come over and give remarks from the CSO representative, and then we'll be able to finish our program today. So Asha, come through. Yeah.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Engineer Chengo, the Acting Director, Sanitation Management and Head of Development Corporation. Our fellow CEOs, led by Shivaji, my friend, Kenny, Patrick, all protocols observed. Guys, everyone. Aren't you excited? Yes. We just launched, you know. So I will start with a quote from one Peter Drucker. He's a business writer. And he says, if you cannot measure it, then you can't improve it. You know, can you imagine, let's say you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to lose weight without stepping onto a scale, you know? So how will you know whether you're succeeding in the direction that you're taking or not? And that's why we're here today, you know, as CSOs for the last 7 years. Personally, I've seen tremendous improvement in terms of how we have moved on from one step to the other, and especially looking at this report here, you know, I just hope it doesn't go to our shelves. It has a lot of information about the CSO performance over the years. And of course, as you can, I can support the previous speakers in terms of data is very important nowadays in terms of what we are doing, how we are collaborating. And we have passed that stage where we are fighting for the limited resources and looking at how this report now is actually helping us identify the gaps and use the limited resources that we have, you know, to collaborate and re-strategize even as CSOs, and also learn how we are going to reallocate resources and invest in the different sector. I'm actually shocked about climate change, yet water is all about. It's either we have excess floods or we have drought, you know. So that's an area that we should actually be looking at as CSOs and now start to look at how do we activities. So of course, over the years, this CSO report has helped us to understand what areas that need to get interventions and programs. Elders have talked. Duty bearers accountable, and even other constituents accountable. We also need to be accountable to ourselves. I'm impressed by the number of CSOs that have come up to report to give out their data for, for comparison and also learning. And I would request us as civil society organizations, we also need to be held accountable just the way we are holding the duty bearers accountable. And that's one of the things that is probably ailing us as Kenyans. You want to point a finger, but four of them are pointing at you. See? So at the end of the day, for us to be able to hold our constituents accountable, I cannot re-emphasize. I know Engineer Chengo has also mentioned that we have a duty to also be able to hold ourselves accountable, and of course, walk the talk. So as we go home, let us read this report and look at the gaps and continue collaborating. I've seen a lot of collaborations for people who are in wash sector about how far we get alone. It's about what is the impact if we collaborate with whatever knowledge I have, whatever technical expertise, whatever resources I have. How do we bring in together the different civil society organizations? And that includes not only in the water sector, I've always emphasized, can we bring also other civil society organizations in other areas like energy? They use water. If it's people like environment, they still use water. There are different sectors. Everyone needs water. And at the end of the day, you find some of these civil society organizations actually contribute in a way that is not probably documented here because they don't think it's a very significant bit that you're contributing to. And then we see this 50 billion gap narrowing down as we go by to the next report. So I will not say it's an easy road that we will follow, but it's the right. Let us strive to follow the right road. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ash, for those remarks and the challenge again you've given to us. Just to recognize that Anu is here, and we are so happy that they're able to join us. Also, Tawasnet, you joined us online and virtually. Thank you very much. I'm also seeing the CEO of work coming in, and yeah, we will not go back to introduce them, we'll just recognize them. When I told you of Boko, yes, thank you. Yes, and so to dismiss us away, I would request Vincent just to come and greet us and dismiss us away. Yeah, he'll also tell us whether there is Matumbo policy or there is no Matumbo policy here. Yes.
All right. I think I'm lost for words just by being here, noting that I've just walked in a few minutes ago, but it was necessary because what makes a team is not all of us being in the same place, doing the same thing at the same time. I was engaged in another meeting, but I'm happy that I made it in good time. I know my seniors, Engineer Chengo, my CEO, Sam, the elders, Patrick, a very able CEO and friend of mine, they've said everything. And Joan ably making the representation of the voice, and all that spoke. I was following bits where I was. The online streaming is actually very nice. So kudos to the team that was planning all this. And all of us, I've seen my good friend down in the house. It's been many, many years from the ministry. I just thank you, and I'm happy to see you. Really,
impressed by the progress that we've made so far, and that we have the voice. So the voice can only get bigger. It can only get bigger and better as we move. So mine is to say thank you so much, and to officially dismiss all of us to go and have some lunch. But as you do that, I think you'll pass by Mercy. She has, I think, some voter at the entrance. So you pick your card and then you go for lunch. Thank you very much. You're officially dismissed. Asante. Was there a prayer? Okay. The bishop tells me to pray. Is the bishop delegated to me? All right. All right. So I think we can say a prayer and also just thank God for the meal that is ahead of us as we finish. Let's pray. Father, we come before you this afternoon. We thank you for the love and for your care. We thank you for the fire that you brought us even in this journey of self-organized accountability around the issues of water and sanitation in this country. And we thank you for the work that the CSOs have been doing as far as water sanitation is concerned to serve your people, to serve your community. We thank you for the leadership that has been given and the support to us by the government and the stakeholders, the donors, and everybody that is involved. We thank you for this day as we launch this report. We pray that it's going to help us to make key decisions as we move into the future. That as we continue serving your people, God is going to guide our steps and to be with us as we break. We have our meal. We pray that you bless us and you continue guiding us for the rest of the day. We thank you. We worship you. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen. Great. Yeah, dismissed. Thank you.
Yeah, kindly before we go for our meal cards and for our lunch, we can.
Kewasnet Partnership, Capacity Building, Networking, Right to Water and Sanitation, Our Vision, Our Mission, Strategic Objectives, Our Core Values, Strategy House, Strategy Summary.
Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Kewasnet, improving governance in the water and sanitation sector. Kewasnet Partnership, Capacity Building, Networking, Right to Water and Sanitation, Our Vision, Our Mission, Strategic Objectives, Our Core Values, Strategy House, Strategy Summary.
Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Kewasnet, improving governance in the water and sanitation sector.